The Edinburgh Fringe Festival, that's where I first started out.
Something keeps drawing me back to it. I mean, there are times when you're in the middle of it and you think, goodness me, why do I do this?
It's a great opportunity for loads and loads of comedians to get together and show off what they've been trying to work on for the last year or 2 years. And then equally, for anyone who likes comedy, it's a brilliant way to come and see so much more comedy than you could possibly see in a normal week, in a normal weekend, and just go wild and see as much as you can.
And when I went up that first time, I was just like, oh, if I could do this every summer for the rest of my life, then that'll be fine.
The Fringe is a proving ground for comedians. It kind of forces us to write a new hour of material every year. And as a one-liner comedian, that obviously means a lot of work because you've got to sort of fill up an hour. So it's kind of a mixture of dread and excitement.
The Edinburgh Fringe Festival is simultaneously the best and worst thing about doing comedy.
Edinburgh Fringe Festival means the world to me. It's the reason that I got into comedy.
Well, it's a test of mental and physical endurance. You do like a year's worth of comedy in 28 days. Somebody once said it's the definition of madness, but I think the definition of madness is 7 guys from Camden singing about baggy trousers.
What's Edinburgh like? Is Edinburgh like your school exams?
I have missed hanging out, mainly. I've not missed losing lots of money.
Last year would have been my 10th year in a row, so it was really weird not having Edinburgh. It's like a part of me, so it's like a part of me was missing that whole buzz of that month.
So the fact that it was cancelled meant that no one was doing it, so we were all in the same boat. So it was sort of like this weird kind of, I miss it, but it's not happening, which is better than missing it and it happening.
It's like taking 10 driving lessons a day instead of 1 every week. So yeah, I missed the Fringe so much last year.
Yes and no. Maybe this will answer your question.
I didn't want a year off. I wanted to be here last year. I definitely missed it.
Definitely, yeah, I have. But, like Arnold Schwarzenegger's favourite bacon and where it can be found, I'll be back.
I very much missed it. I was going to do it in 2020, and so I was getting ready, writing all this stuff and trying all this stuff out. And then suddenly, obviously, COVID happened, and then just the being able to go out and try stuff out no longer existed, so the whole process stopped. But I've now started that process again, so I'm on my way towards another hour of stand-up, and hopefully Edinburgh 2022 will be more like the Edinburgh we know, and will be 3,000 shows or whatever, back to normal, and I shall be there. Hopefully. I've got everything crossed. Most of it crossed out, actually.
While you're living through it, it's been very negative because you can't do gigs, and Zoom gigs are terrible. And I didn't do any gigs in a car park, but they sounded sort of like the best out of a bad situation. But so well done to everyone that did that.
I think it's forced people to be more original.
Obviously, COVID-19 stopped all my gigs, but also I am very lazy and I hate gigging, so that's been fine.
So it's been good because it's made people be a bit more creative.
For me, it means that every gig I do, every socially distanced gig, I open with the same gag. I say, how is everyone tonight? Because you all seem a little bit spaced out.
Gigs weren't the same with social distancing and screens which block out the sound. Yeah, it's just not the same atmosphere as having everyone sat together with raucous laughter.
It basically completely stopped live comedy. So with things opening up again, suddenly, and I had this pleasure only a couple of weeks ago, I'm standing in front of an audience again and I think, oh yes, I remember this. I have to say, I really, really loved being back. I didn't desperately miss it when it was gone. I realised actually I'd probably be just as happy running some sort of small shop that sells Meccano or something, you know.
For me, it's made a lot of people branch out and move into different areas and really rethink about comedy and about life in general. My dad, he got a new job actually. He started painting the social distancing lines, and say what you like about my dad, at least you know where you stand with him.
I think the next full Edinburgh that goes ahead is going to be incredible. I think everyone's going to really think about something interesting because nobody wants 3,000 shows about the pandemic and being locked in, so being in lockdown. So I think everyone's going to be really creative.
I was, of course, delighted to win Best Joke of the Fringe twice. I mean, I might go for a third. Who knows? I'm not saying. I might just, it's tempting, isn't it, to go for 3? Come on, it matters. No, but I'm humble about it.
Dave's Joke of the Fringe Award, that was in 2011. So 10 years ago, I won Dave's Joke of the Fringe Award. That was maybe one of the best years of my life.
Very, very surreal. Suddenly, you've just become part of the main news cycle, not only nationally, but sometimes globally as well. Someone sent me this photo. That's my face at Charing Cross rail station, so that was quite weird. And then another friend sent me this. He was just watching the news, and I think it was all centered around ISIS at the time. And then my head just sort of pops up in between that. It's kind of quite surreal. I'll just show you what he sent.
It's all I ever wanted. My main aim was just to get on the list. So in 2014, I came second, and I couldn't believe it. I used to imagine, wow, if Tim Vine wasn't up there that year, I would have came first. That trophy is my pride and joy.
Winning was a massive surprise to me. It's not something that you really go up expecting, especially it was my first year in the Fringe. It was quite a rough Fringe, actually. I was having quite a rough time. My show wasn't going that well. It was much worse than I thought it was going to be. And winning was quite a boon at the end of the month to make me feel like this wasn't all so bad. And it also really helped to reinforce the fact that I am the main character in comedy, and I always will be.
It was awesome, especially because a lot of my non-comedy friends have actually heard about this award, so I was getting loads of messages congratulating me. Although I'm not the first person in my family to win a prestigious award, when my granddad won World Belt Maker of the Year, he was presented with a heavyweight boxer.
But listen, the trappings of success. Sorry? No, I don't live here, no. No, this is... No, my house is like a glorified tool shed. You could fit it in this room. You've got to be short. So short joke, one sentence ideally, a one-liner.
The audiences who will see the joke won't hear you say it out loud, so it has to be something that works written down, that works if they don't necessarily know your voice.
I actually haven't a clue, to be honest with you. I think you've just got to write as many jokes as possible and then just see what reaction they get.
It's got to be short, sharp and snappy. Usually involves some sort of involvement of an idiom or a well-known saying that all comes together in one sentence.
When I was getting ready for Edinburgh, my dad wrote me an email that said, Nick, which he spelt wrong. He spelt my name wrong. He said N-I-C. Friday, end of the week, thank goodness, been so busy. And then in quotation marks, technology, I don't understand it. And he's put it in capitals like IT. So there's like a double joke there where he's talked about technology and IT. Here's an example. This is like he's done some patter for it. The other day, I was online trying to book some tickets for Orlando, Florida. I asked to fill in a registration form and provide a password, at least 8 characters. So I said, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And then at the bottom he said, I won't charge you for this. I think it is very good indeed. LTD, which is Love Tony Dad, right? And I think I wrote back, but I couldn't find my reply. And I said, well, it's too long. You should write something like, I needed a password 8 characters long, so I picked Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and cut out all the other stuff. And he said, fair enough. And then the way I do one-liners is I do 5 one-liners at the front of the gig. But when I'm doing previews, I'll do 60 one-liners and I'll whittle it down. So I did 60 one-liners, and one of them was this shit joke that my dad had written. And I put it in with these other 59 one-liners. And as I was going through the previews, I'd cut out the ones that didn't work or didn't get big laughs. And I wasn't expecting this to make the final 5 or final 6, or however many it was. And then eventually it got to the final 5, final 6 jokes that ended up in the show. And I was sort of like, I did not think it was a good joke. But the audience said that it was, so I left it in.
Oh, that's a tricky one. I'm not really sure. I do like a good bit of misdirection. I did win the joke in 2019. Also the current holder for the next couple of years after that, 2020 and 2021. But I was on the list the year before, and then the year before that I came 9th with a joke which I think was actually better than the one that won it. It went something like this. I wasn't that close to my dad before he died, which was lucky because he trod on a landmine.
I'm very much looking forward in the next year to just getting up in front of people and doing more jokes again.
Everything just goes back to normal.
I'm hoping maybe people start respecting me. No, I'm not going to say that. Well, you could keep that in. I'm hoping to maybe get more on some TV shows. I think I'm ready to be on TV now. I'll be honest, a lot of comedians are like, oh, I deserve to be on TV. I didn't think that until maybe about 3 weeks ago, but now I think I'm ready, so put me on more TV shows. I'm looking at you, Dave.
World domination, or more realistically, just a lot more live gigs than there were in the last 18 months or so.
Hopefully there'll be a fully attended Edinburgh Festival. That would be great. And hopefully I'll write loads more new jokes. I'm trying to write some jokes about Star Wars, although I think jokes about the way Yoda speaks are out of order.
I love audiences, and I love meeting people, and I love travelling up and down the country and doing that. My hope this year, I was in the middle of a show that I'd written about mental health and my mental health in 2019. And that show got delayed to 2022, and I was like, I've got all new mental health problems. I don't want to continue doing a show from 2019. So I'm writing a show that's very upbeat and a celebration of being sort of like allowed back out again, I suppose.
I think my favourite joke was actually one in the list in the year I won it, which was Alistair Beckett-King's joke. Whenever I meet someone who says, I don't believe in coincidences, I say, oh my God, me neither.
I do quite like Simon Munnery had a really short joke that's just 4 words, which was clown's divorce, custody battle.
For me personally, that would be Dan Antopolsky's hedgehogs. Why can't they share the hedge?
I think Adam Rowe's job centre job was probably my favourite of all the Fringe winners. Which was, if you work at the job centre and get sacked, you still have to go back to work the next day.
My favourite joke of the Fringe was, I needed a password 8 characters long, so I picked Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. It's the one that's been kindest to me.
I like one that didn't actually win the award. I think it might have come second, and it's a Tim Vine joke, and I'm probably going to butcher it. It went something like this. Crime in multi-storey car parks. That's wrong on so many levels.
It'll be like a Tim Vine joke. Well, there are loads of things that have happened in the Fringe, but I just think a lot of them aren't broadcastable.
The unscripted laughter that you have with the audience, the one-off incidents that happen in certain shows that will never happen again, and all those people in that audience, we all shared that one memory.
For about 4 years at Edinburgh, I was doing a chat show where I bring people out the audience and interview them. So it was just me interviewing members of the public, and it wasn't any famous people. And it was great fun. But the year before, I'd been doing Panto with Anita Dobson, whose other half was Brian May. And I used to do a joke at the end of the show. She was playing the Wicked Queen. She'd say, who would ever marry me? And I said, Brian May. Used to get a great laugh. But anyway, but the point was, the two of them were up at the Edinburgh Festival. And I said, oh, hello. Oh, we're coming to see your shows. Oh, great. I said, Brian, you don't want to come on as a guest, because I was just bringing people up who were just, non-celebs. I thought it would be quite amusing to subvert the form and bring up Brian May, you know, a musical legend. And he said, yeah, right. But we decided to bring him up purely as Brian the astronomer. He came up, we talked about stars and things. And at one point I said, you got any hobbies? He said, oh, I play a bit of guitar, you know. We never mentioned Queen at all.
Well, I think it was, it might have been my second or third year of doing the Edinburgh Fringe, and I was in a free Fringe room where you stand at the back and you hold a bucket at the end of the show, and hopefully if people have liked it, they'll put some money in. And I was about 5 minutes into my show, and the door at the back came open, and you sometimes get latecomers, and there was a small Chinese man in a red and yellow tracksuit. He kind of came in, and I was on stage performing, and it kind of distracted me a bit. And he was followed by around about 20 or 30 small Chinese girls, all in matching red and yellow tracksuits. This sounds like a joke. It's not a joke. It genuinely happened. And they stayed throughout the whole of the show, did not laugh once. I don't think they understood what was going on. They might have been in the wrong place. And then at the very end, I got to the back of the room, I held my bucket out, and I assumed the ringleader, the small Chinese man, he presented me with a £10 note in my bucket and bowed. And then individually, they all left and bowed. And it turns out they were the Chinese gymnastics team.
I did a mixed bill gig and Angelos was headlining. And there was about 10 acts, and it was a rainy day, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and it was just absolutely rammed full of tourists that didn't want to be in the rain, so they weren't there for comedy. And there was this very long mixed bill gig that came on, and every single act went on and died, and the audience didn't laugh. And nobody enjoyed it. The audience didn't enjoy it. The acts didn't enjoy it. And it was just one by one. We'd all have to go up and die on our ass. And then I went on eventually. And I hadn't really worked out what my act was. And I went on, and there was a room full of wet tourists who were just so apathetic or annoyed. And I just went on and I just bollocked them. I just went on and said, why are you here? Edinburgh is a horror story, but then at the end of it, you feel like this tremendous sense of achievement. And if you've had a good year, you can have bad years. I had 10 years of bad years before I had one good year, and then when I had the good year, I really appreciated it. So I've got a decade of horror stories, and even when it's good, it's awful. If I miss it, I miss it.
I've turned up at nightclubs at midday and done gigs where it's just sort of 5 people and the floor's still sticky.
The year after I won the Joke of the Fringe in 2016, I broke my arm. This sounds like a setup to a joke. It's not. That was the first week in the Fringe as well. So I spent the rest of the Fringe just doing my show with my arm in a sling. But nobody believed me that it was real. I was like, I'm generally injured here. But everyone was in the audience was just like, what's the gag?
I've done 10 Fringes, 100 shows each year, so that's about 1,000 Fringe shows that I've done. But they don't all go well. So yeah, it's just when a few minutes into the show and you're getting nothing from the audience and you realise, right, it's 5 minutes in, I've still got 55 minutes to go, and you start feeling the beads of sweat running down your forehead.
I used to have a joke which was a callback to a bit, and the second part was a whole bit about how I kind of defend Hitler, and it was only there to use as a callback to a previous joke. But one show I definitely forgot the setup to the callback, so I ended up just doing this whole bit where I defend Hitler, and there was no payoff for the audience. The audience didn't understand what was going on.
Edinburgh is not fun. It's like Edinburgh's like you spend all of your hopes and dreams throughout the year and you pile it all into Edinburgh.